we had a lot of addiction in my family, and one of the things that really changed my mind about this, and I think it really relates to what you're saying about food, is most people think, addiction, say drug addiction, I say heroin addiction, right, which is something very close to me. Most people think heroin addiction, if you said what causes heroin addiction, they'd say, heroin causes heroin addiction, right? If you get hit by a truck and, you break your hip and you're taken to hospital, you'll be given loads of a drug called diamorphine, right, for the pain. Diamorphine is heroin. It's much better than street heroin because it's medically pure, right? If anyone listening to this has a British grandmother who had a hip replacement operation, your grandmother's taken a lot of heroin, right? If what we've been told about the chemical hooks is right, what should be happening to all these people in hospital? Loads of them should be becoming addicted. It doesn't happen in Britain with people who are given diamorphine. So it's like, well, wait, what's going on? I only began to understand it when I went to Vancouver and interviewed this incredible professor there called Bruce Alexander. This theory, the chemical hooks theory of addiction, and chemical hooks are real, they're just a small part of it. The chemical hooks theory of addiction comes from a series of experiments that were done years ago. They're really simple. You take a rat, you put it in a cage, and you give it 2 water bottles. One is just water, the other is water laced with either heroin or cocaine. If you do that, the rat will almost always prefer the drugged water and almost always die quite quickly, right, within I think it's a week. So there you go. You might remember this famous advertisement from the 80s. But in the 70s, Professor Alexander came along and said, well, hang on a minute. You put the rat alone in an empty cage where it's got nothing to do except use these drugs. What would happen if we did this differently? So he built a cage that he called Rat Park, which is basically like heaven for rats, right? They've got loads of friends, they can fuck all the time, they've got grain they like and coloured balls, and they've got both the water bottles, the normal water and the drugged water. The fascinating thing is in Rat Park, they don't like the drugged water that much. None of them used it, some of them, they do use it, but none of them used it compulsively, and none of them ever overdose. So when they're deprived of the things that make life meaningful, they turn obsessively to the drug. When they've got the things that make life meaningful for rats, they don't. The opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, the opposite of addiction is connection.